through the next panel. Voilà, the floor is yours, Willem.
Thank you very much, Tineke. Yes, indeed. My name is Willem Dhooge. I work for Flanders Bio. We are a member of the National Associations Council of 𝗺𝗶𝗰𝗶𝗀𝗺. And maybe a short word on who Flanders Bio is. We are an independent industry association of biotech and life sciences, started almost 20 years ago. And we really started from the industry that has grown in Belgium. Although our name is Flanders Bio, we do have members from Brussels and Wallonia. And I think it's fair to say that Belgium, as already highlighted by Tineke, has a quite interesting position in biotech in Europe, with some of the larger biotech companies in Europe being present in Belgium. Not only in health, but also in the other domains where biotech is playing an important role, and hopefully an ever more important role in the future to come. And because maybe very little people know it, we believe that the cradle of agri-food biotech, or one of the cradles, is in Belgium, with the work that was done by Professor Van Montagu and Shell, and the whole industry that has evolved in that domain. But not only in plant biotech, but also in industrial biotech. And I'm very happy to have two representatives of the agri-food and industrial biotech community in our region in the panel. Before we dive into the panel, which will go about microorganisms for agri-food applications, I would like to give the word to Jens Boyen. Jens is a bioengineer with a master in food technology from Leuven, and he began his career at Danone before transitioning to more diplomatic roles. Currently, he's serving as a plant health attaché for the Belgian permanent representation to the EU. He negotiates the new genomic techniques for plants filed during the Belgian presidency, acting as an honest broker to promote sustainable, innovative agricultural practices. Jens will present now Belgium's council priorities and work on agricultural and new genomic techniques for plants. So the perfect person to start this panel. Please, Jens, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much, Willem. Can you all hear me? Just a quick check. Great. So indeed, thank you for that kind introduction. I will be presenting the Belgian priorities when it comes to our agricultural systems and the move towards a more resilient and sustainable agri-food system. Just checking here if I can share my screen. Because I'm very used to using Teams for work, but not so used to Zoom.
Maybe the people from 𝗺𝗶𝗰𝗶𝗀𝗺 can assist.
I'm in dire need of some assistance here.
It's the green arrow on the bottom of your screen, Jan. So if you go to the bottom of your screen, you see a green arrow.
Otherwise, if you could just walk us.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
But now you can see. Now you can see my screen, right?
No, we see. Yeah. Now we see it.
Yeah. All right. Great. Thank you. Thank you for the assistance. So then we can start here with priorities of the Belgian presidency for the agri-fish filière. So the slogan, as you have read everywhere, I guess, is protect, strengthen, and prepare for the Belgian presidency. And this is exactly what we also aim to do for our agricultural systems. We want to share the best practices and leadership Belgium has shown in the past when it comes to food, our protein strategies who are really developed, and then our commitments to improving sustainability in the agribusiness. So a few of our priorities are the march towards more resilient forests and an effective coordination of the forest issues, Animal health is also really important for us, as well as welfare. We are focused on prevention through biosafety and vaccination campaigns. And we also support the EU animal welfare legislation that has been put on the table right before our presidency, on which we are working on very hard right now. And also the fisheries sector is really important to us. But what is more interesting to the people here present today is our priority of walking towards a more sustainable and resilient, future-proof agri-food and fisheries sector. So we are focused on innovation, which is also one of the key topics here today, which includes, of course, the NGT proposal, which Willem already introduced, is my point of focus during the presidency, and digitalization in general. And we also want to balance sustainability and economic viability. Those go, of course, hand in hand. And what is really important to the Belgian presidency is a fair compensation to farmers, especially in the current political climate where farmers take to the streets everywhere in the EU. So this is a really important focus point for us, and will also be the main theme on our Agri-Fish Council that we have at the end of this month, which is especially focused on the farmer protests. And then what is not in the slide, but is also really important for you to know, and an important priority of the Belgian presidency, is the involvement of consumers in making balanced food choices. So with the Belgian presidency, we want to promote harmonized front-of-pack labeling, both origin and nutritional labeling, to help consumers make more healthy and sustainable choices. Now, there was a proposal foreseen from the European Commission, specifically on front-of-pack labeling, but in the end, they weren't ready yet to publish this proposal. So our presidency was ready to tackle this proposal, but now we will just work on the promotion campaigns of our experience we have with front-of-pack labeling and nutrition labeling. So I just listed for you the Agri-Fish Councils we have foreseen during our presidency. As you know, Agri-Fish is a bit a special case. We have a meeting every month, which shows really the importance of the agricultural sector in the EU. So we have had two so far, or one so far of 2 days, and we will have one next week, specifically focused on the political situation with the farmers. And then we also have two informal meetings planned, and the one on agriculture is specifically focused on innovation and sustainability. So in the transition to a more sustainable food production system and a more balanced consumption pattern, we identified as a Belgian presidency that we have to put the emphasis on transitioning to sustainable food production and these consumption patterns. We have a clear commitment to a resilient agriculture, fisheries, and food sector, and there is a strategic importance for us of ensuring food security and reducing dependence on third countries. So food autonomy is really important for the Belgian presidency, to have that and to establish that in the EU. Then one of the proposals, or for me, the proposal that is perfectly relating to all what I've said before in the Belgian priorities, is the NGT proposal, the new genomic techniques. So I included a brief history of the proposal. I'm sure most of you are aware, but the proposal followed on a council decision adopted in 2019 that we need a new framework for plants obtained by NGTs to really set them free of the constraints we have for the GMOs that we all know, because these NGTs give us a tool for a much more precise breeding, and the plant products that come out of this are really similar to plants obtained by conventional breeding, only much faster. So the proposal was published on July 5th, in the beginning of the Spanish presidency, and it is a part of the food and biodiversity package, really showing the ability of this proposal and these techniques to help contribute to a more resilient agro-food system. With these precision breeding techniques, you can make plants who are more resilient to the climate change, who have higher yields, and this, of course, translates into our priorities of more food autonomy adapted to the climate change. So this also contributes to the sustainability goals of the European Green Deal and our farm to fork and biodiversity strategies. And it can also increase the sector's competitiveness while maintaining a high level of health and environmental protection. Taking into account the precaution principle was really important in this proposal, both from the Commission, but also for the Belgian presidency as we continue the negotiations. So the Commission's proposal initially contained a categorized approach with 2 categories, 1 and 2, each with their own specifications. The main focus here is the category 1 NGT plants, which are very similar or undetectable from plants gained by conventional breeding. So their genetic composition is proportional to these conventional plants. And that's why we want to exempt them from most of the GMO legislation. There is a ban on NGT plants in the GMO-free organic sector. Potential benefits have been noted and addressed in Council, but in general, for the organic sector, there is a big majority who want to keep the ban. So this is also included in the proposal, and during the Council negotiations, it has been kept in the text. And we want to ensure that we have a proportionate regulation. So we also want to encourage participation of SMEs and national research centers, as this really is the spitting image of a proposal made for innovation. And we also want to ensure that consumers are safe and their choice is also safe. So labeling is an important part of the regulation. And then we come to my personal favorite part of the proposal, the patents. There are these plants, as they are innovative, can be patented, but this brings concerns over monopolies of big seed companies, which can lead to increased food prices. And this topic is the one that the Belgian presidency has been working on, because the Spanish presidency before us, they did a very good job at making a compromise, which is very balanced, which has a slight majority in Council, but there is a one remaining issue of patents. So during the Belgian presidency, we have been focused on this issue to try and resolve it. We had one working party, a technical working party on this topic, to have a discussion about the patent issue. And we are currently still taking into account the comments from the member states to see if we can find a proportionate solution to this problem which suit all delegations. So the state of play, I briefly touched this already. In the Council, we've had the working parties under the Spanish presidency, and now it's a priority file for the Belgian presidency, and we're dedicated to the patent issue. And in parallel, the European Parliament is also working on this proposal. They have been successful. My slide is a bit outdated because since the 7th of February, there is a Parliament mandate to go into trilogue negotiations. So they are waiting for us, and we hope we can get to them soon with our own Council mandate and Council position to further negotiate and make a deal on this proposal. So some of the conclusions and key takeaways from my presentation about the Belgian priorities: there is a clear commitment to sustainability, food safety, and economic empowerment in the agri-fish sectors, with an emphasis on collaborative efforts, so by the sector, by consumers and policymakers, to address challenges and ensure this resilient future. We have to balance the environmental, social, and economic considerations in our policy making, and the collaboration across sectors and disciplines is essential for addressing these challenges. Specifically, I can relate to this one because we see for the patent issue in NGTs, we have a bunch of scientists working on this proposal. But of course, intellectual property law is also very important when we talk about patents. So we work closely together to ensure that we make good policy choices, which will result in a valid legislation in the end. And the consumer involvement is, of course, critical to make this transition in an appropriate way. Then I have for you a playlist, a Spotify playlist. I'm not sure if you have seen it already, but we tend to promote this when we make a presentation. We made a special playlist of the Belgian presidency with songs from Belgium. So if you have a chance, be sure to listen to it. And you can also follow us on all of our social media channels. And if you have any questions, I'm available now or after the rest of the interesting presentations today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jens, for your overview of what the work that has been you have been doing as part of the Belgian permanent representation to the EU. I think a lot of interesting topics that you touched upon, and I think we have a very nice panel to dive a bit deeper into some of them. Especially, I was very happy to hear that it's a clear goal to transition for the European Commission to transition to a sustainable food production. And we strongly believe that biotech has a crucial role to play there. Maybe let me introduce the rest of the panel. We have a very balanced panel for this second debate. We have Isabel Vercauteren from 𝗶𝗶𝗰𝗿𝗶𝗀𝗺𝗏 joining us. We have Hendrik Waegeman from the Biobees Europe pilot plant. We have Sofia Morais from 𝗵𝗵𝗰𝗿𝗄𝗁, and we have Barna Kovacs who is Counselor at the Permanent Representation of Hungary for the EU. Let me welcome you all and thank you for joining us in this second part of the panel debate, where we want to dive a bit deeper into what biotech has to offer, because I think we all agree that it has a huge potential in agri-food tech. But on different aspects. You have biotech in agri, but also in food, transitioning to more sustainable food production. But let me start with asking a question to Isabel Vercauteren, who has decades of experience in research, licensing and entrepreneurship, and who is the CEO of 𝗵𝗵𝗿𝗄𝗏, a Belgian still smaller company, biotech company dedicated to food security and ensuring food safe and healthy food chains by providing novel science-based solutions. Isabel, how does 𝗵𝗵𝗿𝗏 focus on microbial strains that improve plant nutrient uptake, biostimulants, as we say, and strains that protect against disease? So can you elaborate a bit on that?
Sure. Thanks, Willem. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Good morning, everybody. So yeah, I will try to explain a little bit how we as a company try to accommodate the ambitions of Europe and Belgium in particular, if we talk about sustainable agriculture. So I will take you a little bit back to the farm to fork strategy, which is a cornerstone of the Green Deal. And with our product development that are based on microorganisms. So these are bacteria, they are fungi, they are yeast strains that we find in nature. We contribute basically to a number of aspirations we have formulated in the farm to fork strategy. One of them is definitely to reduce synthetic inputs. So everybody knows, and we see that in the streets, that we need to reduce our fertilizer input like nitrogen, but also phosphorus. And so basically what we are doing with our biostimulant product development program is to make sure that we offer to farmers products that can either complement or replace on the long term synthetic fertilizer, i.e. what we develop are products that can be used by farmers to guarantee a yield, guarantee a very nice yield, but assuming that fertilizer has to go down in the future. And that is definitely also one of the ambitions that the Farm to Fork strategy has formulated, i.e. we need to reduce by at least 20% of nitrogen. So that is the one angle where we come in with our biostimulants. If we look at control products, biopesticides, I don't like the word biopesticide too much, but I mainly use biocontrol products. These are products also, again, based on microbials that can replace or complement chemical pesticides like fungicides, insecticides, or herbicides. All of us know that these products are not always safe to use and for sure not safe for the environment. So again, here we come in with an alternative solution for a farmer to be able to align with the Farm to Fork strategy, which is kind of prescribing a 50% reduction in harmful pesticides. But all of that, of course, complements or helps to go to a sustainable agriculture for the future. And I think one important aspect we often forget is the soil health and the biodiversity in the soil. And what we have seen after using decades of synthetic fertilizer or chemical pesticides is that really our soils are completely unhealthy. And we are, with biological products or microbial-based products, we are trying to restore some of that biodiversity. So that's a very important aspect. And then in the last point, I want also to refer to the fact that our products can be used in organic farming, which is also a very important target from the Farm to Fork strategy. We are not in the first place going only after organic farming. We are addressing conventional farmers who have a lot of issues and a lot of products, but as an I would say as a plus, as an on top, organic farming is definitely in scope of what 𝗵𝗶𝗶𝗃 is doing. So with all those different aspects, I think it's very obvious that we are really right on target with the ambitions of the Farm to Fork strategy.
Okay, thank you very much for this explanation. 𝗵𝗶𝗃𝗁𝗃 is more into the is more focusing on the agri-tech solutions of biotech. I want to go to the more food applications of biotech with Sofia Morais, who is working for 𝗵𝗵𝗃𝗁𝗃. 𝗵𝗵𝗃𝗁𝗃 is a larger company, I think, in Belgium. Very innovative, using microorganisms to produce ingredients through fermentations. If I'm correctly informed, you have over 1,000 R&D researchers and technical advisors and are active in 90 innovation centers worldwide. A question for you, Sofia. How do you look at the present evolutions in food transitions, and what do you feel are the functional ingredients of the future?
Okay, thank you very much, William. Thank you for your nice introduction, and I would like to take the opportunity also to thank 𝗵𝗶𝗃𝗁𝗃 for kindly inviting me to participate in this panel. Indeed, 𝗵𝗵𝗃𝗁𝗃 it's a B2B company already with a long history. We have more than 100 years, and we are spread across the globe, but operating with a single purpose. And our purpose is to move the planet forward by creating innovative solutions that can contribute for the health and well-being of people everywhere. And so within this purpose, our role is to really develop and bring towards the market innovative solutions, innovative ingredients that enables our customers also to bring towards the market innovative products towards consumers. And within these innovative ingredients that we produce, we mainly target 3 elements. One of the elements is, of course, the functionality. When I'm talking about functionality, I'm talking about bringing an added technological effect towards the product, either, for example, acting preserving the products, extending shelf life, for example. But we also want to contribute within the development of these innovative ingredients towards health and well-being solutions. And so it's also our goal to provide ingredients that foment a better nutrition and also a better health. So we're also looking into physiological effects of some of these ingredients that we are developing and that we are using. And of course, the last element is also towards our contribution towards a better planet. So we also want, and within the area that we operate, so we produce ingredients for bakery, patisserie, and chocolate. And so within the bakery sector, it's also a very important element to protect the heritage of the bread, for example, and also overall to protect the biodiversity that we have. We have different types of ingredient solutions within our product portfolio. If I would focus more on microorganisms, considering that is the topic of today's debate, I would say that we have a dual but complementary approach towards microorganisms. So over the years, we have developed a strong expertise and knowledge on fermentation. And within that, we do have an approach in which we look into the heritage, for example, of bread, and we try to leverage that further into opportunities and try to build on the knowledge gained from the food cultures. Because as you might know, bread is a fermented product, in which, for example, one of the ingredients that it's largely used in bread is, for example, sourdough. Sourdough is a natural living agent, which is basically a fermentation product resulting from microorganisms, flour, and water. And we do research and invest and gain knowledge in terms of the multitude of different microorganisms that are used in sourdough and that are naturally present in sourdough. And we try to leverage further on that because we believe that the future of bread in the end relies on its path. But we also have a second route, I would say, which is by using disruptive technologies. And this is where biotechnology enters. And in the end, our main ambition is to pioneer and to improve bread's production. And so within that, we do have ingredients that we are using mainly, and today we talk about precision fermentation, obtained via precision fermentation, in which we use and that are vertically integrated. We produce and we use and that are vertically integrated in the solutions that we offer towards our customers. And then the last element that I wanted also to bring, because I think that really reflects our ambition and our purpose and the way that we are looking into future ingredients and future solutions. We have a program which is called Mission to Mars, in which we do project ourselves as living in the conditions of Mars, and we try to replicate in our infrastructure what would be such conditions. And that will enable us via food tech center that we have, being inspired from that and try, from that to come with innovative applications that somehow fit our purpose, but that we can also apply it today in our products and can help us to be better prepared for the future. So, of course, the regulatory, all of these solutions that we have, an important element to consider is the regulatory environment in which we operate. And of course, this regulatory environment will determine enable us or not to give access to markets towards these solutions that we have.
Okay. Thank you very much, Sofia. Maybe just for the audience, a quick housekeeping advice. You are able to ask questions to the panelists and via the chat. So if you have urgent questions, please do not hesitate to use the chat to pose questions. So let me now move to Hendrik. innovation is key. Innovation in biotech is key. We've learned about 𝗴𝗿𝗶𝗂𝗺𝗏, who is focusing on plant health, soil health. We've heard about 𝗵𝗵𝗁𝗆𝗄𝗧 and what they're doing in producing healthy food. I have the impression, I have the strong feeling that in Flanders, there's a lot happening in the food transition, protein shift, etc., etc. But these inventions, these new initiatives, they need scale up. And I think before they can go to market. And I think this is really what the 𝗵𝗵𝗁𝗆𝗃 Europe pilot is doing. You as a business developer and a master in biochemical engineering, I think you are the best person to answer the next question. What trends do you see in scale-up and development? What trends have you noticed? And what makes Belgium biotech a development hub? So, Hendrik.
Good morning, Willem, and good morning to the audience. I think at the 𝗵𝗵𝗁𝗆𝗃 Europe pilot plant, of course, we have a bit of a helicopter view because indeed we help many companies to scale up their technologies. I think I could distinguish the trends in, let's say, 3 topics: general trends, market trends, and technology trends. I think general trends that we observe is that more and more companies outsource their scale-up activities. And also their development activities. I think initially there was something that was mainly done by startups, because startups, they don't have the infrastructure themselves. It's very expensive to have scale-up infrastructure. They didn't have the know-how. So I think that's pretty obvious that they work with scale-up centers or CDMOs. But we also see more and more that large corporates make use of CDMOs to scale up their technologies. And I think that also has to do with some increased confidence in scale-up centers and CDMOs. What we've also seen is more interest in development itself, even at smaller scale, because if you do development and scale up under one roof, it will also result in a faster scale up. So I think the increased confidence, the also available infrastructure that we have, especially in Europe, and that's something that we need to be very proud of. And I hope we're also proud that we have this in Belgium, is that it leads to faster lab to fab lines, basically. Products get faster to market. I mean, there's no technical hurdle, at least. We'll probably come back to the regulatory hurdle later on, but I think the regulatory track is much longer than the technical track to get products on the market. Second general trend that we see is, of course, the investment climate, which is currently not that great due to the high interest rates. To combat inflation, capital is relatively expensive. That makes it for startups and innovation in general pretty difficult to get access to finance. And we also see that reflected in the need for scale-up. In terms of market trends, it's basically also a bit the topic of today, is that I've been working at the 𝗵𝗵𝗁𝗆𝗃 Europe pilot plant for 12 years now, relatively from the start. And we've seen also a shift in interest. Initially, there was a big interest in biofuels, biochemicals, but since 2015, 2016, it has been really taken over by the interest in fermentation-derived proteins and food ingredients and biopesticides, which I will no longer call biopesticide, but biocontrol products. And these are very interesting products, of course, because they don't only serve a societal challenge, I would say, but they can also come with really big volumes in the future. And if we aim also to have manufacturing in Europe, I think they really serve nice opportunities or nice cases for the future. It's also very motivating to see that many companies who have never done anything in bio-based or biotech also take their first, sometimes baby steps in this sector, also, let's say, driven a bit by their strive for net zero. I think it will also come back later on in the discussion, but what I also see is that the long regulatory tracks that we have in Europe push the companies that we work with to do first market introductions elsewhere. So not in Europe, but typically in the United States, where these regulatory tracks are short. And I think that's something that needs some further discussion later on. And then maybe lastly, technology trends. I will be very short. What we see is an increased interest in continuous manufacturing. I mean, in the chemical industry, it's quite common to work in a continuous mode. In biotech, it's typically a batch or fed batch processes because continuous is very hard to let's say to establish because of contamination issues, genetic stability issues. But we see more and more also initiatives there to make or to solve that technically and make that possible. And then lastly is the use of second generation feedstocks. There's a bit of a push, I would say, or imposed by European law and by European instruments to use second generation feedstock. So sugars derived from, for example, wheat straw or woody biomass. There's a bit of a concern there because, to be honest, sugars derived from woody biomass are basically cracked, where sugars derived from, for example, beet are just extracted. So it will always be more expensive to have second generation feedstocks compared to first generation feedstocks. And when that is imposed by European law and instruments, I think we have a competitive disadvantage compared to other regions in the world where they don't have these restrictions. Maybe very shortly on the question, like what makes Belgium unique? Well, basically, you already mentioned it a bit in the introduction, Willem, but of course, there's the legacy in Ghent of the work of Professor van Montagu-Veers and Shell that have formed the basis, the foundation of what we have today. But I think there's more. I think it's nowadays we have a very nice ecosystem with companies from pharma biotech, industrial biotech, agri-food biotech. And they're all, it's a well-functioning ecosystem because it's also a cross-fertilizing ecosystem. It's a cross-fertilizing ecosystem where there's a good interaction between universities, research organizations, and companies. There's also a good collaboration between different sectors, for example, biotech and chemistry sector. There's a good collaboration between, for example, data companies and biotech companies. There's a good mobility, I think, of talent. That's at least what I see, also of our experience. And I think all of this is also supported by our government. And to put that also a bit more tangible, if we look at the Flemish government, who's responsible for R&D in Belgium, 3.3 billion euro of their budget is dedicated to R&D, which is more than 5% of their total budget. And also, if we look at Ghent specifically, Ghent has the ambition to be the tech capital of Europe, and I think they can already show some nice results in that as well. Just to give one quote, Ghent ranks on the 7th place worldwide for university alumni who have started up their own company and raised more than 10 million euro. So I think that's quite impressive, but there are many more numbers that we would give. Ghent has also produced more than 500 startups in the past decade. So I think numbers that we can be very proud of.
Thank you very much. A proud advocate of the Ghent area, I hear. But I think it's also the perfect introduction to go to the next speaker, because we also have Barna Kovacs here with us, who works as a counselor at the permanent representation of Hungary to the EU, and who has been appointed as the Secretary General of the BioEast Initiative. Barna, question for you, maybe. Eastern Europe is lagging a bit behind, I think, in research and innovation in bioeconomy, and I refer also to the numbers that were quoted by Hendrik. Is there a clear strategy to catch up with what is happening in other regions and other parts of the European Union?
Yes, thank you very much for the question. Thank you very much for the invitation. I am very pleased to be in this distinguished panel. I am pleased to be part of this discussion in the framework of the 𝗿𝗏𝗶𝗊 organization and, of course, Flanders Bio. I am happy to be here and also to bring a little bit, how it was said, from the 27 shades, some other shades in this discussion, because it's important to discuss, it's important to see the differences, and it's important to tackle the differences. And the question is how and when. I would like to make sure and to clarify at the beginning that I'm here mostly as a representative of the BioEast Initiative for the 11 member states, 11 shades, but I would not attempt at all to have a position on specific legislations as 11 countries, the BioEast, or neither as a Hungarian representative, because I am not following the specific legislations. I am more on an advisor, and I am more helping the 11 countries to develop their own bioeconomy thinking, bioeconomy research and innovation strategic agenda. And that's why let me a little bit to talk about from this perspective, and also I will touch what the Hungarian EU presidency is bringing up in this context. I would go back a little bit also and broadening this discussion to the very start of when it was brought up that we are in a time when we will have new European Parliament elections. We will have a new Commission at the end of the year, or maybe beginning of next year. We will have a Hungarian EU presidency, and we will have the Polish EU presidency starting from 2025. So 2 Eastern European presidencies starting one after each other. And of course, there will be started the European discussions on multi-annual financial framework for the new programming period. On the other hand, let me just bring, without any issue, without any specificity, just very subjectively as a person, there is a discussion at the European level about European strategic autonomy. We are in a phase when we are rethinking the role of Europe in the global supply chain disruption and how we see that ourselves in Europe. We are talking about European food system security. On the other hand, we start to discuss about food policy. Then let me also bring here, there's a very strong debate about the sustainability issues on soil, water, ecosystem services, strong climate targets. And of course, in this context, it's coming the bioeconomy manufacturing initiative, which is said. Then we see that on the streets are the farmers. Then we see that our the bioeconomy, biotechnology, and biomanufacturing sector, it's trying to find itself in this context. And as a general person, I'm asking, how come that the farmers are on the street if we know that we need food, we need biomass? How come that the biotech sector, it's not thriving if we know that we need to change for more sustainable? And it clearly seems that we are in times when the system, it's on change, it's in a transition. The question is how our industry, how our politicians, how our policymakers are taking up this big changes in the time in a system. Sorry for being so broad, but I wanted to bring this context a little bit on that sense, that that if we start to discuss about specific legislations on NGT, on the different agri-food sectors approaches, there are still a lot of misunderstanding, still a lot of unanswered questions. The different proposals, legislative proposals, are taken by politicians and then not necessarily answered by facts, data, risk assessments, which are needed there to have a clear answer and to ensure the consumers that we are not on a wrong track. So why I was saying this? Because in this context, I think we have to think over and we have to rethink the role of Eastern Europe, what could play in this discussion. In Eastern Europe, we have good ecosystem services, or at least a large part. We have soil, we have freshwater, ecosystem services. We are producing biomass, but on the other hand, there is a lack of research and innovation. There is a lack of capacities, human capacities, and of course there is a little bit lack of on how we further valorize our biomass. And in this context, I see that we need to rethink the role of Eastern Europe in the context of what is happening in the system. So Eastern Europe is able to produce biomass. We have soil, we have freshwater, we have ecosystem services, but how we valorize locally, that's a big question. And here could come in the biotech, biomanufacturing. How we channel between West and East, or North and South, how we channel the knowledge between the countries, inside Europe, how we play up the role of Eastern Europe. Now I am talking Eastern Europe in the context of not just the Central and Eastern European countries who are already EU member states, but I'm talking also about the Western Balkan. 6 Western Balkan countries are going to join the EU. We are talking about Ukraine, Moldova, Georgia. Georgia. So those countries are big countries with a big biomass potential. And in this context, how we think about the biomass production of Europe? Do we still in a paradigm of basically Western Europe, it's importing the biomass from the global south and processing and importing brains from Eastern Europe and basically bringing in West? Or we start to think in a common Europe. We start to think how we can raise Europe. And in this context, let me just end with the Hungarian presidency priority. I am not saying here the whole Hungarian presidency priorities because they are not yet out and they are not yet validated, but one which is very much connected, that we wish to agree a necessity of a large-scale macro-regional oriented, so the Eastern European oriented, but European research and innovation partnership, which focuses on 4 thematic areas: on soil, on freshwater, on food system, and on mass valorization, basically biomanufacturing, biotech manufacturing. So giving added value at local level. What would mean this partnership? This partnership would mean that not just public institutions or research organizations are involved, but also the private sector should be. So we wish to build up a bridge which is very targeted towards Eastern Europe. And this partnership should help incentivize, as it was said in the previous panel, we should incentivize the public and private sector to focus on Central and Eastern Europe, to start to produce locally and process locally the biomass availability, and to bring in knowledge to East. So in this context, during the Hungarian presidency, we wish to have discussions in Agri constellation, in the competitiveness constellation. We wish to have a competitiveness council conclusions, to have a partnership focusing on Eastern Europe. And of course, we will organize a few conferences around this discussion, presidency conference. So I think what the BioEast can bring, the 11 countries, we have a setup, we have a structure, and in this structure, which was focused in the past years for research and innovation, we can bring further and we can incentivize the manufacturing biotech sector with a big partnership focusing on Eastern Europe. That's my message here, basically, and I would stop because I was a little bit longer, and I hope that I still can come back for more particular issues. But I really see an opportunity here, which should be picked up also by the industry. From the Western side, and it has to see the value added also to go in at European level to rethink the role of Eastern Europe in Europe, so to say, and that could be very much incentivized with a research and innovation partnership approach. I stop here. Thank you very much for your attention, and let's see whether there will be questions further on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Barna, for this very clear message and call. Also referring a bit to, if I'm correct, to what Jens was mentioning also on the importance for Europe to become more autonomous on critical resources and agri-food tech particularly. Maybe one element that is linked to what you're saying, Barna, is also relates to, and I think Hendrik also already mentioned it a few times, is the long regulatory timelines that we have that hamper innovation to come to market and also hamper investments in those new technologies. So I think we all agree that in Europe innovation is hampered by delayed risk assessment procedures. And we see that in other countries, in other continents, they tend to be less risk averse. And my question to all of you, do you feel that there are lessons to be learned from other markets? And what changes do you feel that we need to make to speed up the European innovation to market? I don't know who wants to start there?
I can start, well, if that's fine.
Yeah, that's fine. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
okay. Well, first of all, I would just like to confirm that I fully concur with what you said, and especially looking at our company, 𝗵𝗶𝗰𝗶𝗀𝗺, okay, we are still small. Those long timelines are really a killer. So from a cost and a time perspective, it's really hard for us to deal with that. But on the other hand, I think it's even more contradicting our big ambition on the European level to become more sustainable in agriculture. So there are two aspects of it. It's the cost on the one hand, but it's also, I think, hampering our ambition. And that is why indeed also companies like ours are looking elsewhere to go with their products. And I'm always using US, but also Brazil as a very attractive market for us. What we see there is a dedicated, specialized biopesticide regulation that is fit for purpose, and I will stress the word fit for purpose in a lot of dimensions for registration of those innovative alternative products. And yeah, it's kind of bringing us or driving us towards these markets such as US and Brazil. But on the same moment, it's indeed decreasing our competitiveness in Europe. And I think this is a big, big issue for us. So the learnings we have indeed from those territories, US and Brazil, are multiple. I would say they have a streamlined and dedicated regulatory process, i.e., it's fit for purpose. You know approximately what your timelines will be. You know what the requirements will be. You have the opportunity to go in pre-discussion meetings, for example, with EPA. And so I would say a lot of instruments are available to make sure that you have a smooth process to the registration. It's also taking risks into account. So I have the impression from a European perspective, we are always looking at what the hazards can be and how how high the risk can be. But we have again to look at all the different potential risks, but also bring them in the right perspective. So that is definitely also a very nice learning that we have done there. And I think if we could collaborate and share more data amongst different authorities, different industry stakeholders, or even research institutions, there are a lot of stakeholders in this process. I think collaboration and more data sharing is definitely also going to help to align regulatory standards and i.e. to make the process more smooth. So for us, there are at least 3 learnings that we have deducted from our contacts at US, but also Brazilian levels. And I think definitely Europe can learn a lot from that.
Okay, thank you very much. I need to keep track of time. Hendrik, I know that you several times you mentioned the regulatory timelines, but I would like to go to Sofia if you allow me, because that in fact is really her specialty, if I may say, as Director of Regulatory Affairs of Piratos and as a global company. I think that your insights might be very valuable. So, Sofia, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, well, I totally agree with the elements that Isabel put it forward. It's also the experience that we have, and it's also what we see. We do believe that we need a regulatory environment that protects consumers, but that also catalyzes innovation. So a regulatory environment in Europe that is fit for purpose, but it's also fit for the future. And where we are able to enhance the competitiveness that we have or that we want to streamline in Europe. Today, a lot of research is happening in Europe, but how these products are reaching European citizens, they are a lot of times not the first market that companies tackle. And one of the reasons is because of the regulatory elements. We do operate, as I mentioned before, at worldwide level. So we do have the experience in bringing to market different markets around the world these ingredients, which in a lot of cases require a pre-approval process. And we do see that there are a lot of big differences in how the process goes. either, and I think it's not a question of the level of urgency, because in other jurisdictions also, the level of urgency towards the dossiers and how the safety assessment is conducted, it's also extremely high. But I think we have in Europe some constraints. There's a big administrative burden that is required, associated also with the dossier submissions. I think some of the markets, as Isabel mentioned, applicants have the ability to have pre-submission discussions with the authorities doing the safety assessment, and that is definitely an added value, because you can adapt your dossier and better respond to any additional questions that they might have by having these one-on-one discussions with them. Another element, it's also the time that the safety assessment is taking. I think we have been talking about legislative initiatives, but I think there's a lot of non-legislative initiatives that are required. For example, in further investing in these organizations that do regulatory assessments, because a lot of times they also don't have the resources that enables them to have the process faster. And I think one of the other elements that also I think complements the legislative part, and on the non-legislative part, it's also, and when we talk about in particular on biotech, I think it's also a role a work to be done with regard on the consumer's perception about biotechnology. And I think there's a lot still of literacy on that, and that should be, further explored, and consumers should be better educated to that.
Okay, thank you very much, Sofia. We only have 1 minute left, but I would like to give the opportunity still for Hendrik, if he has a short addition to the present discussion on the regulatory framework and legislation.
Okay, I'll try to be short, but I think a lot has been said already, and there are indeed similarities between biocontrol products and novel food products, where the regulatory tracks are very long. But I think on top of that, I think we need a bit of a culture change, maybe. A culture change that leads to invented in Europe, manufactured in Europe, because that's currently not the case. And I'm very happy to see that also yesterday by our Prime Minister, it's been put back on the table to really go for an industrial deal. And I think once we basically conclude amongst each other, amongst the member states, that we want to go for an industrial deal, then the other things like shorter regulatory tracks, easier access to permits to build, incentives also to stimulate investments will follow.
Okay, thank you very much. I think maybe at the political level, some more sense of urgency, as we have seen during the COVID crisis. A lot more was possible all of a sudden. But this brings me, I had prepared some other questions, but I think that time is running out. I see Claire moving in. I would like to finalize by thanking all the speakers, Isabel, Hendrik, and Sofia. I hope, Barna and Jens, you've picked up some messages to work further on during your discussions and during your involvements in the present and future presidencies. And I'm happy to give the word now to Claire for some final words.
Thank you so much, Willem. And it was an amazing, that time just flew past. And I spent a lot of it just nodding my head relentlessly in agreement with everybody. Because I think across us here, whether you're a policymaker, a biotechnologist, a company, we have the same shared goals for Europe. And we really believe in them. And we also, when we look at how we can make best use of biotechnology, we have the tools and we have the capability as well. The discussion that we need to have is how we make this impactful so that it brings the right type of value into each country, because it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. And this is really what we learn from our national associations, is that each national economy is different. And what we need to be able to do is ensure that biotechnology and biomanufacturing fit exactly what that country needs. And we've learned a lot from setting up our own biomanufacturing platform within 𝗴𝗶𝗶𝗰𝗿 to look at it from the product back rather than the technology forward. And this has helped us bring a lot of new conversations into play to understand what needs to be built, what skills need to be there, how do the practicalities of a route to market dictate whether something is viable or not? Because we know the science is great, we all work in it. So from a 𝗴𝗶𝗶𝗰𝗿 perspective, I'm delighted to hear all of the messaging and discussion today. And it's a long-term discussion. Things don't just happen overnight. But we look forward to seeing what is within the biomanufacturing initiative that is due soon. And indeed, I will give a small plug for 𝗴𝗶𝗶𝗰𝗿 working with a coalition of almost 20 other organizations to publish a set of principles that we would like to see applied through the initiative. And that will happen tomorrow. But more importantly, we will continue working with the Belgian presidency, working into the Hungarian presidency, looking forward into Poland, and after that, Denmark, because this is how we build the infrastructure through which Europe grows and thrives. So I would like to thank all of our speakers and all of our attendees for their really great efforts into the meeting today. We will follow this up with everybody with a report and invite you to continue to be part of the conversation. And as 𝗴𝗶𝗶𝗰𝗿, we are very proud to be able to drive this across sectors with the inspirational people that we have within our community. So thank you all very much indeed, everybody, and we will follow up and keep the conversation going. We wish you a good afternoon.